Actually, not yet. Let's give it another minute. I think people. So good afternoon, everyone. It looks like we have folks coming in, but it looks like we're ready to go ahead and get the second California Broadband Council meeting going. And maybe without further ado, Joe, why don't you make a roll call first, just to make sure we have enough members.
Certainly. Designee for President Bajer, Ms. Guzman Aceves.
Present.
Designee for Director Giarducci, Mr. Mallon.
Present.
Designee for Superintendent Thurman, Mr. Below.
Present.
Designee for Director Lasso, Mr. Jamison.
Present.
Designee for Secretary Kim, Ms. Pepper.
Present.
Ms. McPeak.
Here.
Secretary Ross.
Present.
Ms. Sasaki is here for Mr. Lucas until Mr. Lucas can join, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Ms. Snyder.
Present.
Designee for Senator Hueso, Ms. Smith.
Present.
And Dr. Williams will join us if he's able to for Assemblymember Gibson. So we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Great to see everyone, and especially from the fact that I missed the first meeting, can believe it or not, because I was away in vaccine land. Now that California is doing great, number 11, possibly number 10 nationwide in terms of our vaccination rate. Coming up for air a little bit and coming back to this very important topic, which is the broadband. And I could only said that we have so much excitement that we can share, especially with the recent announcement of May revision. But I'll leave that to our cpuc colleagues, which I'm sure jump in a bit to going to be share a lot of information. And I know many of the California Broadband Council member also have wonderful updates. So this is going to be a very, very fun and exciting meeting. So once again, welcome all of the council members to this meeting. And I just want to let you know that since we're talking about May revision, I do have to step away probably at 2 o'clock to go to the Senate hearing on May revision. Happen to be booked at the same time. So Martha has graciously agreed to continue to chair the meeting. Thank you so much for doing that, Martha. Today, we're also going to name a few new members to the council, starting with the newly appointed Deputy Director of Broadband and Digital Literacy, Mr. Scott Adams, which if you can just turn on your camera and say hello. I know you're going to have a more self-intro later on.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, welcome. You're definitely going to hear a presentation from Scott later on, in addition to his self-intro. I also want to take a moment to welcome our new member, the new director of DGS, Ana Maria Lasso. Ana, are you on? I saw you earlier. If you want to just say hello to everyone.
Thank you, Amy, for that nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here and happy to be represented by Brett Jamieson.
Thank you, Anna, for joining us. And yes, we love Brent. Brent has been probably one of the longest serving member, longer than me for sure, but probably same length as Sunny, right? Our institute to this. So, happy to have both of you joining today. Also wanted to announce a new designee representing Greg, and I think you saw her earlier, Laura Sasaki, representing the California State Library. Laura, if you just want to say hi one more time.
Hi, nice to see everybody.
All right, great. And moving on to her new role, but still a very passionate about Broadband Council. Therefore, we invited her to continue to serve as an advisory council member, is the now new Chief Deputy Director of Office of Digital Innovation, Anne Novell-Bonneville. Anne, are you on this call right now? I do not see Anne. All right, well, so Anne will continue to serve as the advisory members to this council, as well as we have a brand new addition representing the California State University System, their Chief Information Officer, Michael Berman. Michael, if you're online, please say hello. Okay, I guess we didn't get our vice member coordinated very well, but I'm sure we can put them in next time around. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Scott to introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Scott Adams. Just want to say hello. It's a real honor and privilege to be appointed to this position at this time. With an exciting time for broadband in California. Just a little bit about me. I've spent a real significant part of my career working on both broadband adoption and broadband deployment in the state's ecosystem. Really looking forward to collaborating with the Broadband Council, with all of you and your departments and agencies, and other stakeholders to implement the governor's broadband executive order and the broadband action plan. I really wanted to just extend my thanks to those of you and your teams that we've met with over the last couple of weeks for bringing me up to speed. That's really helped, and want to do a special shout out to folks on our team, particularly Adelina Zendejas, Jules Stein, and Sachin Brahm for their wonderful work and patience with me to bring me up to speed.
Thank you, Scott. Looking forward to hear from you shortly. And we're just excited to have Scott joining in the time that almost everything is literally ready and primed for a huge acceleration, especially with the announcement of the May revision. So looking forward to really engaging you. And then Scott will be here to serve every council member here with your need, and very, very excited moments ahead of us. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, there has been a lot of activity. I'm sure you all have been tracking much more than me, because I've been literally in the vaccine land, from both the federal government level with their announcement of the emergency broadband benefits program to subsidize services, and devices for eligible parties. We will provide a link to that site in a minute. And the governor's May revision budget proposed a $7 billion state investment to the expansion of broadband infrastructure and access. And I know many of the members here were involved in that. So thank you so much for your work. We also wanted to have a special shout out to, Ann and Robert Seed and Rob Osborne and Michael Mingus for, the support on the federal responses. And because earlier the Department of Technology also had a chance to submit a recommendation to the federal program. So we're looking forward to hear more outcome from that. So with that, Scott, are you ready to provide a 2020 focus on and progress, I should say, from the governor's executive order that is developed in the action plan? Oh, you're on mute.
Absolutely. Well, as you all know, 2020 focused on the governor's executive order and the development of the action plan. And 2020, as you all have shared with us and will provide updates, it's been really focusing on updating the executive order items and the implementation of the broadband action plan. Specifically during today's meeting, we're focusing on the executive order items and are going to be hearing updates from all of you or those of you who are tasked with those, on the progress that's been made thus far. And the future meetings this year are really going to focus and dive down on the progress that's been made on the action plan. So Amy, do I kick it back to you to call on our first presenter?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that. And maybe before we jump right in, I wanted to open up to see if any of the council members like to make any statements or any remarks before we go into the agenda item for the next, looks like probably good 60 minutes or so on the executive order action item updates. Just I want to open up to the members first. Yes, Secretary Ross.
So Amy, I just wanted to, whether it's appropriate as this time or not, to say welcome Scott and to thank him before the council, because I reached out to him as the minute I got your email announcing him. It's like, oh, can you help us coordinate a letter to USDA so we can comment on Reconnect? And he was so kind. He got right back to me. He goes, I'd be happy to do that. I haven't started the job yet. I don't start till next week. But with a rapidly coming at us deadline, Scott coordinated comments which were very complimentary to what the PUC was doing. And so I just wanted to be able to say, what a great way to start our working relationship, me trying to get him to work before he's actually on the assignment. But I also wanted to thank Sunny, because she has been one of the advocates on broadband access at fairgrounds. And she early on advocated that with a T-Mobile Sprint merger, there was an opportunity to really stress the public interest services. And since our last meeting, Sunny and her organization have met with my staff to start the process of identifying as many as 10 fairgrounds that will be selected by T-Mobile. And their goal is to have 3 projects completed by early 2022. And the good news for the fairs is that this would be free access to broadband. So we'll be working with them on mapping and information, but I wanted to thank Sunny for following up on that, and that will help us accomplish one of our big priority areas. So I just wanted to say thank you.
And Amy, if I could say thank you back to Secretary Ross, and also acknowledge that that is a requirement of the California Public Utilities Commission of approving the merger or the acquisition by T-Mobile of Sprint. And so I see Commissioner Guzman-Aceves as well as Commissioner Howe and also Director Osborne. And the real challenge is coordinating among all of us the selection, and that is pending before the PUC. But we did all the consultation that was required by our MAU with the regional consortia. The regional consortia in turn had responsibility to reach out to the county boards of supervisors and the county fair boards or the fair boards to see how we optimize that kind of connectivity. So just back to thanking you, Secretary Ross, because it all started with CDFA, I have to say, who got us to pay attention, and then the PUC joined in that requirement.
Yeah. You know, I just want to also thank Secretary Ross for being a catalyst and taking proactive action around the USDA letter. Because that really provided an opportunity for me, you know, stepping into this job to see very quickly the power of collective action and collective voice that this broadband council could have. And I understand that the work that folks did to provide comment and the speed with which that was approved was somewhat unprecedented. So thank you, Secretary Ross and members of the council.
Thank you, Scott. I did see Secretary Ross and Sunny, and I did see a hand from Mitch. Mitch, you want to go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Amy and everyone here. I just wanted to say to all of you, it's been a pleasure representing Director Gilarducci, and I know Pat Mallon's on. He's covering down here as our assistant director here at Public Safety Communications and for Cal OES. But I wanted to let you know that this will be my last meeting to be part of you. I've decided to resign and kind of do a step back in my work here with the state. And so I'm not exactly sure what Mitch 3.0 is going to look like, but you'll figure that out. And so, but I wanted to say it was just a pleasure to work with all of you these last few years, and really to try to make a difference across the board. And I'm hoping that these efforts that we put together will materialize with what the infrastructure bill and with some of the funding that we're seeing elsewhere. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, but I just want to say thank you to all of you, and it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Mitch. I had no idea. We thought you sent Pat to represent Mark. It's just, because we like Pat better than you. No, I'm just kidding. But I had no idea that you were going to be, becoming Mitch 3.0. But congratulations on, venturing into the next chapter. And I'm sure that's going to, it was a difficult decision, but it's probably, the best for you and your family. So for that, on behalf of the council, just thank you so much for all of the years that you spent with us and all of the contribution on and off the council. And I know working firsthand with Cal OES, how much you were involved in all of the emergency responses. Just incredible work. So thank you so much and best wishes. And now you can participate as our public attendee and comment on the public during the comment period.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate the kind words. I'll consider it. How's that?
Thank you. All right. Sounds like I'm competing with my dog barking at the end. So I'm going to mute yourself and go ahead and head over to our first presenter, who is going to be providing an update on the executive order. We're probably going to go a little bit out of order, so it's not exactly sequentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. But starting with the item that is mapping and data, I believe that's EO 3 and 8. So would that be cpuc, please?
Yes, thank you. And before I hand it over to Rob, I just wanted to, Sunny got a little ahead of me there, but Commissioner Darcy Houck has also joined us today. And Commissioner Houck is now leading the proceeding that administers the California Advanced Service Fund. So she is she's the new broadband queen. And I'm looking forward to her participation in the council in the future. So thank you, Commissioner Houck, for joining us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Osborne.
Hello, can you hear me? Great, thank you. I'm going to share the screen just to show the slides here. All right, can you all see that?
Yep, Rob, we can see. Perfect.
Okay, excellent, thank you. All right, so the PUC is tasked with 2 items in the executive order. First is broadband mapping, and we're requested to lead the data aggregation and mapping efforts in coordination with CalSTA and other relevant state agencies, local and tribal governments, and regional consortia that would focus on locations without broadband access, information on public and private broadband network infrastructure, state-owned infrastructure rights-of-ways, cost of deploying various middle mile and last mile network components, as well as information to support the development of local broadband infrastructure deployment and digital equity plans. So what we've completed so far, we have participated in the Federal Digital Opportunity Data Collection Docket, and there's more information in the link, so I'll send these out later. We've also completed the annual broadband data collection and posted that on the broadband map, and the link to that is broadbandmap.ca.gov. We also have posted the RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund award areas on the same map, so you can select those as a layer to find out what providers have won in what areas. And then finally, we completed the CalSpeed tests from last year in the fall of 2020 and posted those results on the broadband map. In progress, what's still going on is further engagement in the federal docket. So the FCC is going to be finalizing the data collection format, which is moving away from census blocks and moving to locations and building location fabric, which hopefully will be more accurate than the current method. We will continue broadband testing on the mobile side through CalSpeed, which is also informing our resiliency requirements for the emergency disaster relief proceeding. And we are one of the only states in the union that has network resiliency requirements for wireline and wireless providers. I think on the 72-hour backup for wireless, and then we're in the process now of working out finalizing the 72-hour for wireline. And then also assisting CDT, the Department of Technology, with the Broadband for All portal. The next slide is just to show you an example of the CalSpeed testing. We test 4,000 locations twice a year. We're in the process right now of doing our second round of testing. We're testing not just 4G LTE, but also FirstNet, which is the first responder network that's used by emergency responders, as well as 5G. That's a new thing this year. So on the left, you see the 4,000 locations. On the right, you see an interpolated map based on those test results. And the interpolation is basically a prediction of coverage. We find this prediction map is actually more accurate than the provider maps you find on the website. You'll find, for instance, some carriers showing the entire state as having coverage. The next slide here, I'm just showing, this is something that we created for the emergency disaster relief proceeding, where we're requiring wireline providers to have 72-hour backup in high fire threat 2 and high fire threat 3 district areas. So those are shown in the yellow and the orange, and then the green, which actually should be blue, but because it's overlaid, it looks green. That's indicating areas where there is less than 1 megabit per second up and down on a single mobile provider. So those are the areas where we're requiring wireline providers to have battery backup. Next is Executive Order Item 8, and this is working in collaboration with the Department of Technology and other agencies to seek opportunities to use programs under our jurisdiction to accelerate broadband deployment and leverage utility infrastructure access. To that end, we have an open proceeding, which Commissioner Martha Guzman-Aceves is the assigned commissioner, and we have an order instituting rulemaking regarding broadband infrastructure deployment. We initially were looking at areas where fires have devastated communities and what it would take in the process of rebuilding to have the investor-owned utilities put fiber in the rebuild process, but we've since expanded that to be broader, and we are in the process now working with the investor-owned utilities to submit pilot proposals. July 15th is the due date, but this would be pilot proposals to deploy fiber either a middle mile or last mile to communities where you don't have internet access. So this would be really a new way of getting into unserved areas beyond what's currently available today. Next is a map showing, this is a really amazing map, by the way, showing the high fire threat areas and the utility districts, and then the unserved census designated places. So the large colors, the yellow here, that's Southern California Edison. The orange circles are census designated places with service that is below 100 megabits per second. And so what we're trying to do is solicit ways to bring fiber to these communities where they don't have access. And then finally, we have the broadband maps that I mentioned before, and I also have included a link to the May revise. And since I have a little bit of time left, I just wanted to briefly touch upon that. Let's see, to stop share, I think we go here.
Hey, Rob,
So,
before you go into the
yes.
May revise, I did see Sarah has a hand raised. I just want to make sure if she has a question on the items first before we go into the May revise.
Certainly.
Yeah, this is just a point of personal inquiry about your mapping. Do you guys get the data from the FCC's Form 477 as part of that?
So we solicit the data directly from the providers, and it is typically in the Form 477 format. But once we receive that data, we then go through a validation process to try and determine if service is actually available.
Are there gaps in the Form 477 data that we think are necessary? That's my dog in the background. Can't control her at all. She only does this during Zoom meetings. Are there gaps in the Form 477 data that are important for determining adequate broadband access?
Could you say more about what you mean by gaps?
Is there information that we would like to collect in order to actually figure out where to deploy, like where there isn't enough competition or where the problem is more of a question of adoption versus access that isn't in the Form 77 that we would like to collect?
Yes, and that's a great question. And that's really the main focus of the FCC's Digital Opportunity Data Collection proceeding, where they're trying to get more granular data. So we currently collect at the census block level, and you have this problem where even if there's one customer who's has service to that for that provider, it's reported as the whole block. So in the case of the DODC, the Digital Opportunity Data Collection, they want to collect data down to the location level or building level. So that would be a more accurate way of determining where there is and isn't broadband.
So if they actually change that, will you guys get that information?
Yes, we're in the process of acquiring the building fabric information as well as changing the format for how data is collected for our providers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. You want to go ahead with May revision?
Certainly, thank you. So the administration proposed, so the governor made an announcement last Friday, and the administration proposed $7 billion as part of a package of broadband proposals in the governor's May revision budget update as part of investments to support equitable based broadband. And the proposal aims to construct a state-owned middle mile network using a combination of state, local, and privately owned rights of way. And that estimate right now is $4 billion. The middle mile network will expand access and capacity to enable last mile networks across the state. This will bring new providers and offer more options to customers and lower service costs. An additional component of this is providing additional last mile funding to connect to the middle mile and increase the number of households with access to broadband. That's $2 billion. Subsequent to that, there's an additional $500 million for supporting local governments that can raise money to deploy publicly owned last mile networks with public-private partnerships. And this is like a loan loss reserve account. So money would be leveraged using this money to raise money for localities that want to deploy broadband. And then finally, there would be a one-time funding available to expedite upgrades in areas served by the small independent local telephone companies that are still rate regulated, and that's $500 million. So that's just sort of in a nutshell what was contained in the broadband piece of the May revise.
Thank you. Any question or comments from the council member?
I just wanted to add that last piece on the localities that tribes are also eligible to do that. So that's super exciting. And I think a huge opportunity for a lot of tribes that haven't been able to access that opportunity before.
Great. Thank you, Christina. All right. I know there's some questions being posted on the chat. So Rob, when you have a minute, feel free to jump in there, or we could provide those answers at once during the open comment period. But if there's no further question from council members.
Sorry,
yes,
I have a
Just
question.
like Sarah's.
Did you guys mention that you're planning that the May revise includes an injection of funds, one-time funds into the CASF? Did I hear correctly?
Yes, so the last mile funding would be going into the California Advanced Services Fund.
And is that in lieu of the surcharge that funds the CASF? How does that, is this, what I guess I'm asking for clarification, is that to get at entities that are somehow not eligible for CASF? Is this like a separate group of projects? I'm just trying to get a better sense of that.
Yeah, so let me just restate what I said earlier with some clarification for you. So I said that all this the last mile is going into CSF. There's $500 million that's going to would go to the local independent telephone company. So that's not part of CSF. That's part of the high cost fund A. The $500 million for the loan loss reserve would go into CSF, and that would be used for raising money for local bonds to fund broadband infrastructure.
So that's the only additional one-time funds that are that's proposed to go into the CASF is the loan loss reserve.
No, there's also an additional $2 billion that would be provided for last mile funding. But then anything beyond that, I would defer to the administration.
And Sarah, I would just say that we're hoping that this is obviously a conversation that continues with the legislature in both houses on the importance of extending the CSF program and how critical it is to have the extension. And obviously the legislature is leading on that, so wanted to be collaborative with what the legislative priorities are. And with the reforms, the necessary reforms to the program that will make both the loan loss reserve and the last mile go further. And things like we've all talked about here, the importance of funding local governments to do some of this infrastructure, among many other pieces of reform. So definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to get get clarification that you guys are still, that the proposal includes the extension of the CASF surcharge, not just,
right,
or not a replacement of, I don't want to say just because $2 billion is quite a lot, but it's not as if you're viewing the surcharge as ending in lieu of this.
No, and we, as we've said before, we see that this infrastructure, like all of our infrastructure, is going to be needed in perpetuity, frankly. So I know we often have that's in necessary reauthorizations in place, but you know, we all know broadband infrastructure will continuously be in need of upgrading. So there's always going to be a need from our perspective for the CSF program.
Thank you.
I did want to briefly respond to one of the comments to us, which is an important component on enforcing our mergers and reorganizations that we approve. And as of late, the last couple of mergers, what we've done is, and also bankruptcy reorganizations, is to add an enforcement component, which had been missing in previous settlements. And so we're happy to say that, for instance, in Secretary Ross and Sunny mentioned a couple earlier today, and part of that will be actually having a penalty structure to ensure things like the fairgrounds are properly built out. So that is a newer strategy that we've started to incorporate into our approvals. And just at a high level, I'll just say that is how we plan to really monitor. And fortunately, there's always a kind of citizen process that folks can come forward to us and petition us to act if some of these agreements are not being upheld. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha, for that. All right, I'd like to move to our next presenter, which is GoBiz, covering item 5 and 13. And I understand they need to wrap by 1:50. So I think this should be plenty of time. So go ahead, GoBiz.
Can you guys hear me? I'm getting a weird ping. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm Kind Pereira, Senior Advisor for Business Development and International Trade over at GoBiz, and happy to report on the 2 items in our bailiwick, which are funding, item number 5. So as stated, GoBiz is directed to identify funding opportunities for broadband development and adoption by collaborating with all cabinet level agencies, independent departments, and independent constitutional officers to create a list of funding sources to support broadband equipment and digital literacy. In that effort, we have convened a couple times with a number of the agencies present here to get an assessment as to what state resources could be applied to a federal match component when going after federal grants and opportunities, as well as looking at what type of resources, whether it be staffing or administrative abilities they may have to be able to actually administer some of the federal programs, which would be tied to our District 9 counterparts on the federal level. Additionally, every 2 weeks, we have meetings with all of the District 9 representatives for our federal counterparts. And those meetings started around the COVID-19 pandemic in March of last year and continued through this process. So we're able to now bifurcate it into COVID response, and now we're focusing a little bit more on broadband relief response. Over the last few calls, they have indicated to us that as an administrative priority, broadband is going to get a very tight look. And so even in potential notice of funding opportunities that don't have broadband stipulated directly it could still be an applicable item, especially as it relates to projects with construction elements. So shovel-ready projects are, with broadband components, are going to get prioritized through all agencies based on their determinations that they said to us on the call. There are still some administrative rules and associated policies and procedures that they need to sort out, but we're expecting that some of that information should come very soon. Also today, there was a NOFO published, which we will, I believe there was around 300 million in this one. We're going to follow up on that. But as far as the federal work and understanding what all the grants and opportunities are, we've compiled a list based on all the previous action items around COVID response and around existing federal programs. But obviously with the infrastructure bill and a lot of other things coming out, we expect this to be an ongoing effort, and we'll continue to be working with Sachin and the team over at CUT to make sure that this is not just the most accurate and most relevant, but can be disseminated to the agencies who would be the administrative record at the appropriate time. As far as any questions on that first, on the funding effort? Okay. In addition to that, we're engaging with Kathleen Kelly-Dennis on engaging philanthropy throughout the space, focusing more on regional elements. So we recently, as a team in the CalBiz side and GoBiz, have added 4 regional representatives for the different pockets of the state, one in the North State, one in the Central Coast, one in the Central Valley, and one in Imperial Inland Empire. And they are to engage on the regional level to understand not just what the core concept or core capabilities are, but also to help them with planning, with permitting, and with process. And so over the next year, we've onboarded 3 of the 4 representatives now, and over the next year, we'll be engaging on the ground level, trying to increase their ability to go after grants, to be able to increase their ability to understand how to use match requirements and how to use state funds to be able to overlay into those matches. Okay. On item 13. Item 13 is related to adoption, and GoBiz is directed to coordinate the outreach efforts of existing statewide programs and institutions to inform residents of affordable internet service offerings, including, and this is where the cpuc and the CETF and the CSL, California State Libraries, are involved. We have, as of this time, had a coordinating conversation with the California State Libraries and an initial intake with CETF and CPUC, but we'll be continuing to move down the path of adoption as this goes forward. Obviously, when new programs are coming out, we do expect there to be a lot of programs that are going to come out. We'll just continue to keep all the relevant parties informed. And thank you very much to Sunny for constantly keeping us abreast of all the new stuff going on. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Wanted to open up to the council members. Have any questions or comments? All right. I also want to acknowledge that Dr. William has joined representing Assemblymember Gibson. So welcome. Okay, moving along. Excellent. Let's speaking of Sunny, it's the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Chair Tong, and building on the enthusiastic and encouraging reports from Kaina and Rob, the California Emerging Technology Fund is named in Executive Order 13B. It also relates to, by the way, in the Action Plan Recommendation 16, A, B, and C, where I think in full disclosure, it was the California Department of Education who suggested that the California Emerging Technology Fund should be a partner in doing what we have done for a number of years, which is trying to get people to adopt the technology in their home. And when we focus, our priorities are on the low-income households, those who are digitally disadvantaged, people with disabilities, people who do not speak English as a primary language. That effort, I actually supported or submitted today a progress report in terms of how we went about implementing that directive in the executive order. To be sure, we have partnered with the California Department of Education, and Jeff Bello and Mary Nicely are representing the department here today. They have both a landing page and a direction to the work that we do. We also reached out to a lot of county offices of education. Several county superintendents have been very active. Mary Ann Dewan in Santa Clara, Deborah Duardo in Los Angeles, several others who have taken a lead. I also want to acknowledge that we engaged former Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, to do outreach. We have reached out to the 168 largest districts with the highest national school lunch program eligibility, highest percentage of their students who qualify for the free or reduced lunch program. To date, of that outreach to 168, 58 have just not responded at all after repeated contacts, including the former superintendent calling their superintendent. But in addition to that, we've had, I think, responses that are very respectable from 110 jurisdictions that will reach by the end of 2021 over 976,000 students with information about affordable offers. As those districts have been in progress, the going back to school task has actually been a preoccupying focus, rightly so, for in-classroom instruction and also now testing. So some of the distribution of offers about affordable broadband will be delayed. But in the meantime, as kind of has just referenced and is being talked about, the federal government authorized the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program in the Reconciliation Act in December. That authorizes $3.2 billion to be used across the nation for people to sign up for a subsidy, low-income households, priority on National School Lunch Program, eligible households, for anyone though who's low income to sign up for EBB with the FCC process, which is through USAC. That opened up last week on May 12th. When a household signs up and is qualified, then they can take a subsidy of $50 a month to apply against a program, a plan that they choose from a internet service provider of their choice. That subsidy is $75, by the way, per household per month on tribal lands. So we have immediately switched to the promotion of EBB to let everyone know about the Emergency Broadband Program. We want California to get its fair share, which is $480 million out of $3.2 billion, because California has 15% of all low-income residents in the country live in California. We will need to rely upon the internet service providers to help on that outreach, to have the FCC reporting who are signing up in each state and by some respectable, manageable geographic subdivision. That could be by zip code, it could be by census tract. It needs to be, or block. We need to be able to get that reporting. The FCC has not made that clear at this point, or at least not to us. And then lastly, we have also, and we're linking in the chat, information from the 2021 broadband survey, statewide survey on broadband adoption. Good news is we now have almost 91% of all households connected at home. A good deal of that is a result of school-based strategy, and the school-based strategies have been directly responsible for driving down the percentage that we call underconnected, who have a smartphone only. That dropped from 18% in 2017 to 10% in 2019, and it's now just 6%. So continuing to work with school districts as the trusted messenger, which undoubtedly, especially for families with students, it is the primary trusted messenger is the local school. That has to be part of what we do to promote EBB. We also found that in the statewide survey that there's still a very small percentage of households who are low income and eligible for affordable offers know about the affordable offers. Only 38% of all eligible low income households in California are aware that there's affordable broadband offers. That was 30% just 2 years ago. So only 8 percentage point increase, even in the middle of a pandemic. And that speaks to the need for EBB to be advertised, for the internet service providers to actually partner with schools, partner with community organizations, and to advertise to get this word out. We think that it is likely the 3.2 billion will be used by the end of 2021. And we need to hold accountable, all of us, beginning with the ISPs who have to do the advertising to get California's fair share. I will close by saying, keep the eye on the ball. That is 480 million that we want to have attracted into California to support our low-income households. So thank you for the opportunity to report on what we have done. And thanks to the California Department of Education and the local school districts for being our partners in doing this distribution to date.
Thank you, Sunny, for that. Wanted to see if any council member question or input, or if CDE like to have anything to add on top of what Sunny presented.
We can go, or we can add our part when it comes time to our section.
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds like I do have two hands raised here. Brent, let's start with you, and then Sarah, we'll go to you.
Thank you very much, Chair Tong. Sunny, you may have covered this, but I don't know that I quite caught it. The $50 monthly subsidy under the EBB, how long does that last for?
It lasts until 3.2 billion is spent. And so it is temporary, it is absolutely interim, and we will all need to be very, I think, cognizant of, so what comes next? There has to be some plan by the federal government and or state for affordable broadband. The PUC has a lifeline proceeding, which I think is a very important part of this picture, safety net. There's other pending legislation. We think the federal government is going to have to do something. There is a very legitimate issue, we think, Brett, about two things. One is that a lot of students got connected with hotspots. So there's actually an existing database. The school districts have that information and they protect the confidentiality, but they need to be our allies in reaching out. When school in classroom instruction becomes the most dominant mode of learning, there's still going to be a need for families and students to be connected at home. And the experience that we all had with simultaneous users, with millions of households online, speaks to the need for the upgrade of the underlying infrastructure to begin with. The second issue is going to be that when the households, literally when the 3.2 billion does phase out, there are FCC rules about notification by the ISPs that you're about to lose this benefit. We are encouraging as many people to sign up as possible to register with the FCC through USAC the demand. So in a sense, it's sort of betting on the come, but that's the issue. We're in a very temporary interim position, and I think what is the most effective, cost-effective, economically efficient way to administer affordability is also an issue for study. We're very delighted that the Pew Charitable Trust just actually provided a very substantial grant through CETF to USC to continue to analyze that issue.
No, thank you, Sonny. And that creates in and of itself a heck of a marketing challenge as well, right? You know, everybody come sign up, but you don't know how long you're going to have it for. And I think we do kind of need to think about, as you said, what are the next steps after that, so that it doesn't seem like it's a wasted effort by those that want to sign up, that it will continue to be there possibly after the 3.2 billion goes away. That sounds like a heck of a challenge. So thank you.
You're right. No, you're right. You're totally right. That's the last line in my in my written report. So let's just underscore what you said, Brent.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, just a quick question. Sunny, are we getting any information about what types of plans they're signing up for? I'm only saying that because we had some anecdotal information from a lot of school districts that the affordable plans that were eligible to them during the pandemic were not actually meeting the students' needs. The bandwidth 25.3 just, which was the majority of what was being offered, just wouldn't facilitate kids having class all day and having a parent working from home, or even just two kids working from home or attending school from home. And so I'm wondering if we're going to get information about, you know, where, if we're going to get, I understand that there's some privacy concerns, but are we going to get some information from the FCC about like what types of plans are signing up for and where those plans, you know, where those subscribers are signing up for those plans, just so that we know a general direction. You know, if the goal is to sign up, is to make sure that people who are on EBB have some kind of option after EBB ends, we would have to know what kind of plans they're accustomed to, what the price of those plans are, and the degree to which they're affordable or available in California.
I think you're right on all those points. We reported the last two meetings of the California Broadband Council going back to last fall that the existing affordable offers with simultaneous users are not adequate. They weren't adequate to support multiple students, for example, at the household, and they needed to be upgraded. That was part of the call to action. The way that EBB was set up is that the household chooses which plan, and they have $50 subsidy up to the cost of the plan. So they could apply it against an affordable offer that may be $10 in the case of the AT&T Assist, or 15 and actually the Comcast Internet Essentials, or $15 for others, etc. Or they can buy another higher cost plan that has higher bandwidth. I think together, the state of California, the Broadband Council, probably through the Public Utilities Commission, should be requesting all the information you just asked for from the FCC. It's all going to be needed to understand what to do to replace it, as Brent said.
I'm just thinking because, we do have the California Lifeline program, which does, as of there's decision in October, to subsidize broadband bundled with voice. But I understand that, you know, if you're dealing with a low income household and they're forced to choose between a wireless plan that they may already have or already know that they need and trying to get fixed interconnected broadband, they're probably going to choose the wireless plan because they can use it wherever they go. But if we're looking at trying to find a way to make broadband more affordable, you know, since the EBB is also income tiered, is there a way to build off of the programs that we already have? Maybe Martha, since I see that her hand is raised, right, can elaborate.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think this is both an exciting time because there's such a focus and much greater federal contribution, but Brent, you kind of raised such a critical question, because not only with this federally subsidized short-term subsidy, but even with the current plans that previous to the EBB were offered by the companies, you know, we heard very much so from many of the folks who help people sign up for those plans. People get upsold after a couple months. Many of these kind of, you know, unfortunate situations that resulted from what was originally sounded like a great idea. And I wanted to just kind of maybe share, I'm sure some of you know what the state of New York has done to kind of take a really different approach than using public dollars to subsidize affordability, but to require the ISPs to have an affordable plan. And that legislation is currently being challenged. So we'll see how it is sustained. But that's the other approach here that you guys have heard me talk about before, which is where's the obligation of these ISPs to simply offer an affordable plan and to have that as a requirement of the benefit of them being able to operate in this state. That is the approach that New York has taken. I hope they succeed. And I think it's a more comprehensive approach than these temporary funding sources. And certainly we have no authority. You know, we've asked for, and I will acknowledge that the carriers did give us more information on their affordable plans over the COVID period than they have in the past. But we do really need Congress and the state legislature, as New York just did, to really put these obligations in place. So maybe Sarah, to you and to Dr. Williams to really heed the call to let's get this affordable broadband in place and let's require it. I mean, it is not that simple, but it is that simple in many ways. So thank you for letting me share my thoughts.
And if I could add, Commissioner Aceves, we have, CTF is actually sponsoring AB 1176 that Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia is authoring. We have recommended that that bill be actually a require if you are a vendor to the state of California or any agency that receives public funds from the state. So all of the public agencies, including the school districts, that those vendors have to, if they're ISPs, provide an affordable offer at the $15 level and standardized eligibility across all of them. Ledge Council has been a little timid in trying to craft such a bill. It is moving, and it's the vehicle to do a requirement through procurement, which we absolutely support. And then Dr. Williams should probably speak to the legislation that Assemblymember Gibson is authoring for reaching all the residents in publicly subsidized housing, which have a much different situation because their owners of the building have to be involved as a part of the transaction with the ISPs.
Just really quickly, I will note that my boss authored a bill last year, SB 1058, that would have required the ISPs to offer an affordable plan. It did not make it through the process. Ledge Council can write that bill.
And I think we need to join forces to have them write that bill.
Yeah, no, this is really good discussion, and I think it's one of those items that you know, ledge process is one hand, and I know that there's earlier talks about whether or not the you know, the state contract, you know, Sunny, to your point, for those ISP that, you know, receive public funds, you know, there's certain level of obligation that it can be, you know, should hold them accountable to, but how, right? To what is the best way? And I think all of these, I think we do need a certain level of expectation that needs to be set. And interesting, thank you, Martha, for sharing the New York, you know, situation. Interesting to monitor how that continues, but California always sets the way. So I would urge, you know, us continue to push through what we think is a fair and equitable practice, and not to put anybody in a hardship or any way, but I do think it's a part of elevating that basic necessity and then the basic expectation in helping this type of affordable plan can be sustained and offered, not just in a temporary manner. So to that degree, however we want to do it, there's no better time than now to push forward. So I do need to sign off to go to my budget hearing, but two things I want to make sure I hand it off to Martha to continue to run the meeting. One is earlier when GoBiz was presenting their item 13, I do know that the state library have also done work to that. So Laura, I don't know if you want to have anything you wanted to, you know, fill the gap there, or you want to wait for reporting later on. And then Martha, I think you have the rest of the agenda to go forward with, right? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Okay, so it looks like we are on the CDT update for ordering paragraphs 4 and 6, I believe.
Yes, we are. Did Laura, did you want to provide a quick update on what you guys are doing on 13C?
Yeah, sure. We actually started very slowly in December of last year. Did a digital navigator training for librarians across the state to give them resources to be able to provide the options of affordable broadband to their patrons and to their communities, because communities oftentimes come to the library looking for help. So it's a great area to be able to disseminate information. We partnered with Susan over at CETF, with Long Beach Public Library and with Arizona State Library, who everybody had just fantastic information to be able to give out to our librarians. We will also be doing next week, we're firming up all of the details, but we're going to be doing an EBB webinar as well to build on that and to continue to provide them with resources. Obviously, there's only so much that you can do before the applicant has to kind of take over and do the rest themselves, but being able to promote that, make sure that people are aware of it, and then also provide assistance for just eligibility and qualifications and understanding what sort of documentation they need for their eligibility. So that's what we'll be doing in the short term, and then continuing to work with GoBiz on expanding efforts in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. And sorry about not capturing that. So thank you so much for that update.
Not a problem.
Okay, so now, Scott, are we back to CDT?
Yes, we are. Thank you. And I'm going to go through executive order items 4 and 6 pretty quick, because I know we have a number of other updates following us. So on executive order item number 4, that falls under the mapping and data category. It specifically directs the Department of Technology in collaboration with GoBiz and the Department of General Services to regularly convene private sector companies in an effort to understand and predict current and future demand for broadband, specifically for the purpose of enabling the state to more effectively allocate resources and manage policies and programs, supporting broadband goals. Prior, as far as actions that have already been taken prior to me coming here in October of 2020, there were 2 convenings or listening sections with private sector folks to solicit inputs as part of the Broadband for All Action Plan development. In terms of this is something that's going to be ongoing with us. What we have in progress is we met with GoBiz, and we're planning a next convening with private sector entities sometime in the early to mid-summer, and we'll keep you all posted on those. On executive order item number 6, which is under the funding category, that directs the Department of Technology in collaboration with the Department of General Services to seek opportunities to leverage state contract authorities as resources to further statewide broadband access and adoption. At the last Broadband Council meeting in February, a presentation was given by the State Parks and Recreation and CDT that really provided an overview and answered questions about the statewide rural connectivity invitation for bid, specifically with the goal of expanding broadband connectivity to rural areas. That is one example of how we're moving forward on that item. And again, we are, basically on a go-forward basis, going to be collaborating with DGS to look at similar opportunities or others to leverage, to leverage the resources that we have to further broadband access and adoption in the state. And that is what I have right now on those 2 items.
Okay, any questions for Scott? Okay, I'm not seeing any hand raised, but please feel free to unmute if you do. Okay, the next step we have is CalSTA for ordering paragraph 7.
Great, thank you. Before I hand it off to Elizabeth, I do want to just say a thank you in front of our Broadband Council and our attendees to the departments and agencies we've been working very close with on the EO and on the Broadband Action Plan, and specifically, of course, our friends at the PUC. I feel like we're partners in this very important middle mile piece, and as well as at CDT and GoBiz. And so, you know, we're looking forward to it. Elizabeth's going to go over the specifics of what we've been doing, and just wanted to say a really heartfelt thank you to all of you. Hand it over to Elizabeth.
Let me share a presentation. So again, thanks for the opportunity to be here today to present an update on this item. The Executive Order Item 7 directs CalSTA and Caltrans to work directly with the CTC to identify and incorporate the installation of conduit and/or fiber into all appropriate and feasible transportation projects along strategic corridors. So towards this broadband effort and in support of it, Caltrans has established my broadband coordinator position last year. And so again, I just wanted to share that I'm available for contacting to work with the California Department of Transportation for our broadband expansion efforts. My position is to look for opportunities of engagement, to be an effective partner, and to streamline Caltrans's processes to facilitate the installation on our state highway right-of-way. Caltrans has also been facilitating standalone and partnership projects. So we've been working with service providers who would like access to our state highway right-of-way to allow them encroachment opportunities to expand broadband for their own services to the communities, as well as partnering with Caltrans on our transportation projects to expand broadband while we are performing our own construction work. In addition, Caltrans hosts outreach meetings with our service providers and broadband stakeholders. We hold these meetings twice a year. It gives us an opportunity to share information about what's happening within Caltrans, what's going on with our recent information on our broadband efforts, provides our service providers an opportunity to ask questions, and it gives us an additional opportunity to engage with the service providers to talk about opportunities and challenges that we can work together to overcome to expand broadband within our state highway right-of-way. For Caltrans specific efforts, we have been working on incorporating broadband in our planning phases of our projects. We have updated our planning guidance and our forms to ensure that the needs for broadband are included in the scope of that work. Caltrans has also been working to identify projects in our design and our construction phases to identify where it is feasible to add conduit and broadband. This gives us an opportunity to specifically reach unconnected and underconnected areas, and we want to be a part of that. I wanted to provide a quick example of this. I think it's been a great partnership with the Caltrans District 11 executive leadership, as well as SANDAG in our Southern California area, the County of San Diego. And on Caltrans's State Route 67 pavement rehabilitation project, Caltrans has worked really closely with SANDAG to identify the funding that was needed to add fiber to this 18-mile stretch. This will be important for helping to connect and improve the digital connectivity within that area. It'll give us an opportunity to take advantage of the road work to install the fiber and demonstrate the cost and time savings as we implement the fiber installation as part of this pavement project. It's also an example of our Dig Smart, the Dig Once efforts, where we won't be disrupting this area multiple times. Caltrans is working right now on developing our official Dig Smart policy, which will be finalized later this year. We are pleased that CTC voted the needed funding for the addition of this fiber, and that the SANDAG Board of Directors allocated the remaining funds that were needed to incorporate the installation of the fiber to support this project. SANDAG's also working to identify a private sector to connect to this middle mile infrastructure and bring service to the local area. For more information on Caltrans and for links to our contacts, please visit our website at the bottom of your screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. What a great project there in San Diego County. Definitely showing the continued partnership we're seeing with the COGS and all of the local governments. Are there any questions for Caltrans?
Not a question, Commissioner, but just a comment that Elizabeth, with the support of Director Mashaka and the entire Caltrans team and CalSTA, Lori Pepper and Commissioner Kim, they've done an amazing job of clearing all the backlog of permits as well. So the whole State Route 67 was identified literally about 60 days ago as an opportunity, maybe even less. And they moved really quickly, and that was landmark for CTC to take the action that they did. So really hats off to them.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that update. Okay, next up we have DGS on ordering paragraph 9.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. So for action item number 9, just as a quick reminder, DGS, pursuant to the executive order, was directed to provide an inventory of state property that could possibly be used for broadband deployment and infrastructure. And part of that effort is to develop criteria to be able to identify those properties. We have over 43,000 properties in our statewide property index. So this is not going to be a easy or quick endeavor, and it's definitely one that's going to take us some time to get through. I'm pleased to say that thus far we actually have met with Caltrans and our partners at cpuc in our ongoing work to develop that criteria. And as mentioned, that is ongoing. The other barrier that exists in the identification of these properties, sorry, not necessarily the identification, but then once identified, what we do with these properties is the fact that right now we are statutorily limited in our leasing authority for these properties. We have a 10-year limitation, which does not necessarily create a very, it doesn't encourage investment in our properties when they're limited to 10 years. So we are actually presently seeking statutory changes to expand DGS's authority when we lease these properties. So hopefully it will encourage greater investment and interest by industry. We are also looking forward, again, with our partners at CDT to continue to set up and have those industry meetings. Those industry meetings are going to be extraordinarily informative for us as we continue to develop our search criteria and try and identify properties adequate for broadband deployment. So that is the extent of the update that I have at this time, and hopefully I will be able to demonstrate more progress at our next meeting.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, same thing here, seeing no questions. So we're gonna move right along now to Cal OES on ordering paragraph 10.
Hi, well, good afternoon. So paragraph 10 is focused on leveraging the deployment of next generation 911, which does include broadband connectivity to each of the public safety answering points. We are about 75% through with the installation of the equipment in the 438 PSAPs, public safety answering points. And we are kind of have a mix of broadband service providers into each of those PSAPs. You know, our goal was to have 4 independent connections so that there would be significant resiliency due to some limitations in broadband service providers in that area. You know, we're down to 2 in a couple now. The NG 911 program has a regional service provider as well as a statewide service provider. So that, again, so there's some redundancy there. And our hope was that the regional providers would provide 2 internet connections or broadband connections, and the prime statewide would also provide 2. We're finding that because of some limitations there, some of them are actually using the same service providers. So we are still pushing to you know, to complete the installation of all the public safety answering points and to leverage a minimum of 2 service providers. And then we have to work with the local jurisdictions to see where they can branch off from that fiber connection, you know, to provide some local connectivity. The ones that are kind of lagging are the more rural counties. I also looked into, this kind of bleeds into item number 11, but I looked at the cpuc report on the 74 state fairgrounds and found that there are 2 state fairgrounds that have virtually, one of them has virtually no cellular coverage whatsoever, and the other one has 1 service provider with really marginal data throughput on the cellular connection. So we will be working with AT&T and our FirstNet partners to leverage the FirstNet installation, which should include or will include an AT&T service into those 2. So at least we have some cellular connectivity on those 2. As far as the deployment of FirstNet, I also noticed that there was a number of fairgrounds that still do not have FirstNet, even though they do have AT&T coverage. AT&T is working, continuing to work with us to select sites that that we can influence. We were allowed to influence 30. Of the 30 that we were allowed to dictate their location, only 5 of them are actually on the air now. This is after a couple of years. They do have some more that are under construction, some that are under planning, but the deployment is continuing. They have reported that they're about 90% done with deployment of FirstNet on existing AT&T towers, and that during 2020 they deployed around 225 new build sites throughout the state. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Patrick. Sunny, are you?
I wanted to ask if Patrick could share with us the 2 fairgrounds he mentioned that don't have the
Trinity County and Modoc.
Trinity and Modoc. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think, Patrick, you mentioned a little bit of 11, but if there was nothing else there, we can move to CDFA's update. I don't know if Secretary Ross, if you're there or not, we can come back around to you. There we go. Okay. Oh, you're muted, Secretary Ross.
Yeah, okay, that's what I get for multitasking. I explained to Scott, embarrassingly, we have been without our deputy secretary who is the lead on this project since February. So on the precision ag pieces, I do not have anything to report. I want to thank Patrick for his report on the fairs. Obviously, that's another big pet project of ours at CDFA, but we are hopeful that we'll soon have a deputy secretary to continue leading our work on the precision ag. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Ross. Okay, let's move on to HCD on ordering paragraph 12.
Hi, everybody. I am Josh Rosa from HCD. I'm going to try to share a few slides if I can figure this out. I don't know where my, there it is. Bear with me. Okay. This is also what I get from multitasking. Can folks see the PowerPoint there?
Yes, we can see him.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner and Council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today about HCD's progress implementing our part in this executive order. My name is Josh Rosa. I direct a branch in HCD focused on carrying out this important work in coordination with other agencies. The executive orders item 12 directs us to provide recommendations to the cpuc. First, we're highly aware that broadband for all is an intersectional challenge and it's a team sport. So any recommendation that we make to the CPUC is not merely a recommendation from the sidelines, but it's our commitment to take intentional complementary action supportive of whatever policies we're advising. So we're starting with examining our department's unique oversight roles and programs that can be leveraged. What's the piece of the puzzle that we're holding that could help us develop recommendations for joint action? HCD administers grants and loans to fund the production of affordable housing, and we monitor a portfolio of existing affordable developments that use that funding. So we're asking, how do these resources match against the complicated barriers arrayed against broadband for all? So fortunately, some very smart people have already figured out the roadblocks, and these are the 5 roadblocks articulated in the action plan. And although we're not talking about the action plan today, I did want to revisit these because HCD's recommendations are going to seek to address all 5. We start with interagency consultation and stakeholder engagement. This slide says completed, but this only speaks to the initial conversations that we've started with agencies and stakeholders, and these ongoing discussions will have to continue as we work on those recommendations we talked about. At the same time, we've revisited our department's own programmatic and policy processes with influence on housing stock. And this includes HCD's asset management and preservation practices for existing properties, as well as our role funding construction of new affordable housing. So on that new funding side, we're piloting new criteria to promote broadband connectivity. This is through HCD's multifamily housing program. This is our flagship program for the construction, rehab, and preservation of rental housing for lower income households. And MHP is preparing a new NOFA of $175 million to fund these activities. It's a competitive process, so that gives us a chance to drive priorities. We're adding a threshold requirement that projects have to be capable of minimum download speeds. And then there's going to be scoring criteria for projects that achieve 100 megabits per second download and 20 for upload, while also providing the internet service for free or reduced price, providing devices, and offering digital literacy training that addresses cultural, linguistic, and other barriers. And you'll see in italics in the slide, we note how each of these criteria is designed to address each of those 5 roadblocks we're kind of laser focused on. These draft guidelines will go out in early July. Now, the idea is this will move the needle by driving some immediate incentives, but in addition to that, we're going to learn a lot from the applicant pool. Like, what's the field's current capacity to meet each of these objectives, and what's the development community's elasticity or willingness to make each of these objectives pencil? All of these findings are going to inform our recommendations that we'll give to the CPC later in the year. Also informing those recommendations is a survey. We're preparing to conduct a survey of owners and managers of affordable housing developments to speak specifically to developers and landlords and what are the challenges and the needs and the opportunities that you see, and what's the level of interest among the development community and the landlord community for extending broadband to their tenants. So we're going to be working with TCAC and CalHFA in the weeks ahead to coordinate the development of this questionnaire and conduct a survey using our list and our portfolio of properties, and ideally to wrap that up before the end of July. And that gives us August to consolidate and order the results, ideally according to some defined problem solution sequences that can inform recommendations. And that brings us full circle to the recommendations we'll be making. And again, we won't be recommending actions that the CPC should take. We'll be recommending actions that we could take. And hopefully this speeds up some progress to help make broadband for all. I think that is it. That concludes my remarks. Thank you for your interest in our department's work here, and I'd be happy to help with any questions.
Thank you, Josh. I see Dr. Williams has his hand up.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to share my appreciation for your presentation, and also just to mention that Mr. Gibson's bill AB 1425 is on appropriations, the suspense calendar. We feel pretty good. We actually have started the vote count. We've got a couple of folks on board, but it is a tough fight in terms of the specificity of Mr. Gibson's proposal. It's not difficult in the sense that what Mr. Gibson wants and the reason why he took on the bill in the first place and why we've been working with the California Emerging Technologies Fund is because Mr. Gibson's district, of course, like so many districts in Southern California, there are a number of families who live in public housing, and the ability for them to connect to telehealth and distance education is essential, not only for social mobility out of poverty, but really when it comes to the youth, it's the core issue of learning loss. We've seen how brief periods of not being able to connect to educational instruction can promote a particular kind of loss in a young person's education that lasts for many years. So this is a real passion project for Mr. Gibson, and he's happy to have a tremendous amount of support, not only from the actual families in public housing. We had a large group of folks who testified in committee from Nickerson Gardens and other public housing families. And also we have great support from industry like Telecu and other folks that understand why this is so important. Also, we had a great conversation. The last thing I'll say, we had a great conversation with BizFed. It is a misnomer that business is not interested in making sure that folks in public housing have connection to broadband services. So just want to show my appreciation for those comments, and also been working hand in hand with Sunny on this since the beginning, and it's been an amazing experience. One, because I've learned more than I could actually ever conceive of knowing, and Sunny has been my teacher, and I'm so appreciative of your partnership, and Mr. Gibson is as well.
I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hand, Commissioner. Sorry. If I could just also thank Dr. Williams for his leadership and Assemblymember Gibson. I put it in the chat, but we're talking about the poorest Californians by definition and the most digitally disadvantaged. And the work that Josh reported on that HCD is interested in, we really want to build upon. It's part of the action plan, the executive order, and in also the action plan, but it needs to be funded. And so I think Sarah Smith's question about the intent of the administration, which you answered, which is to have that continuing collection out of the California Advanced Services Fund, is a really important piece of information I didn't have coming into this meeting. Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner. It is also AB 1425 relies on that source in a very modest way to collect dollars back into the public housing account. You have led the effort to try to get the most aggressive rule under existing statute, but the statute has to be changed. So thank you for trying to do as much as you could within the law. We now need to change that law and get the funding approved and supported with the goal that all residents in publicly subsidized housing have to get online. So thank you, Assemblymember Gibson. Thank you, Josh. We want to work really closely with HCD because, as you know, there's not one database that actually is a full compilation of all of the publicly subsidized housing complexes, government authorities, housing authorities, and nonprofits. We need that. It is, we're the ones who keep generating it based on what we get from TCAT, we get from you, we get from HUD, and I hope that we can have within HCD a tracking that also can help the PUC determine, do we get everybody connected? When do we get everybody connected and digitally literate?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because that has been a subject of some very recent meetings and a lot of work here about trying to build that complete picture of where all of the affordable developments are, including the NOAA, the natural occurring affordable development. That's actually that's probably the most uncharted piece. So, we are making progress in pulling those pixels together, but we do have a ways to go before we can do perfect mapping.
Are you doing the farm worker housing? That's the other piece that we have, I think, a need for a much more complete database, and that one is not in anyone's portfolio from which I can tell, but is really, really important and part of the priority target of AB 1425.
Like a lot of developments, that one we can track the portion that we're funding. So we have the Joe Cerna Junior Farm Worker Program, and so we can go back to historical program data and we can match them with our portfolio, so we'll know where those properties are. But again, that's actually a small piece of the total construction there. So it's something that yeah, and I don't, let me know if I'm going too into the weeds. It's the older housing stock that is the most elusive. We have an annual progress report process now for newly constructed housing over the last 7 years. And so that actually provides a lot of data. But once we start looking back farther than that, it gets more and more patchy as we look backwards.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the updates. I would just, maybe I'll take the chair privilege here and saying that as we learned through COVID, through all the tremendous work, particularly of our education sector and the leadership there, the approaches that we've taken in the past by focusing on anchor institutions, be they schools, libraries, fairgrounds, now affordable housing. I think those are certainly worthy focuses, but I do need to reflect on what we have learned over these last year. Personally, I've learned over the last years that what we need is universal service and the obligation to serve all Californians. So I think I just call upon us again to really not lose the focus as we try to get some of these donuts filled, and they certainly need to be filled. But again, I think there is a greater obligation that needs to be put in place. And in the past, with this particular program on public housing, unfortunately, the issue has not really been the lack of infrastructure. In many cases, it simply was the opposition of the carriers to serve in the form that the housing administrators would have preferred in order to accomplish that universal service. So I look forward to continuing that dialogue here to this important part of our community, and so many other important institutions, be they schools, affordable housing. I know I'm looking at the Department of Aging. We've done some drills with them as well. So we definitely have to fill in these infrastructure gaps, but I think maybe we need to think more holistically. So thank you for letting me reflect on that work. I think next up we have CDE and ordering paragraph 14.
Thank you very much. Let's get the right slide screen up. Whoops, and wrong button. That's always how it goes. Come on. Of course, it's the broadband connection, right? Isn't that how it goes? Let me try it one more time here. Apparently Google Slides and my screen has stopped. One thing I was typing in the chat just as you called on me was responding to Sunny's comment in the chat that we had a webinar, and I'll be sharing this here in a moment, on Friday, and we had over 300 of our schools and districts on it talking about EBB and getting the word out about EBB. So we welcome even more assistance in that, but we have been doing our best to get that information out. So yeah, so thank you for letting us share. Our part here is helping work with our school districts to get the word out about devices. Some of these tasks we've been going since before the broadband order came out, and some since, but it's work that we believe in, and we're going to continue to go forward and support our schools. Our superintendent it's key to his heart, near and dear to his heart. So over the past year, there's been work with the governor and the first partner in getting the computing devices and the T-Mobile hotspots out for distance learning, coordinating with this CDE Foundation. We also have been very appreciative of the work that we've been able to work with the CTF and the CASF on getting broadband subscription subsidies out, and the $5 million for devices. That was very helpful for our students. We meet regularly with our county office of education. Every county has a CTO, and we meet with them and talk to them about and work with them on device and connectivity issues. Also, in our official role, we coordinate with all of the other states all things E-rate, and so we're very closely aware of and paying attention to both EBB, and then there's the ECF, the Emergency Connectivity Fund. That one is specifically for schools that will be rolling out here shortly to get $7.1 billion in support to get devices and connectivity to students for distance learning and connectivity at their houses. That is very, very, the ink is not even dry up on that one. And so we're doing our best to get the information out about it as it comes. The superintendent has this digital divide task force, which I think many of folks here are aware of, and Mike, like the conversation has been here, has been very very clear and encouraging the ISPs to continue to offer low-cost offers for now and then going forward. Mary Nicely and the team worked on getting it turned out about over 1 million devices available in the middle of the shortfall. In our conversations with other states, we heard over and over again how they were upset at California because they would put in an order and they'd be like, oh, we can't, we send them all to California. So our students did get a priority thanks to the effort here. The CD's website hosted all those offers, and of the federal dollars, over $2 billion of it went to technology for devices and connectivity and getting students connected. The superintendent also and team has also supported Speaker Rendon in his broadband work group, talking about broadband. The work continuing, the superintendent launched the $1 million Digital Divide Innovation Challenge, and that has been pretty well received and is ongoing. If you'd like more information, check out on that. There will be, we're continuing to watch all of including the bills mentioned here, all the broadband bills in the legislature this year. Don't know why that keeps popping up. Like others, we've been looking at the mapping work, and there's trying to see exactly where our students live. We've tried to drop all close to 6 million kids on a map and then overlay that with what connectivity information we have. In doing that work, we've experienced what we've had here on the conversation today, that there's a challenge in understanding what the maps show. And so we know that just because you have the student on the map, availability, it doesn't necessarily always clear, especially when you're looking at the FCC availability mapping information. Continue to work with our CTOs at the county office on issues relating to E-rate and CTF and planning. There will be more webinars and outreach. I heard Laura talk about her webinar on EBB. We should probably kind of team up and make sure we're all tag teaming on that, especially when it comes to something on EBB, because we are learning different things. One comment I was going to make about EBB was, there was a concern about what happens if it's done. We got that question too. And they said, what happens if it's done and we're in the middle of a contract? Does that contract continue? And so we did contact the FCC and got clear answer that no, your contract, if they run out of money, your contract is over. Families will not be locked in. And so that was a relief to hear from them. We also, because of the fact that we're sometimes get so much in the detailed weeds, we're getting feedback from other states that families, as they're registering for ABB and signing up, they're choosing Lifeline instead of EBB, and they don't realize it because it looks very similar. And then what happens is then the families don't find the right eligibility boxes, and so they're deep in. They're like, "What I should be able to do?" And so sharing that information, go back up, make sure you're on EBB first, and go for it. So the more we can coordinate, the better we can help all those involved. And again, we appreciate the collaboration with all the other council members on solutions and accountability and getting our students connected. This is our email address to anybody who needs to contact us. It gets all of us. Of course, we all have personal email addresses, but this one gets all of us in the CDE. And we appreciate the efforts that everyone has had, and it continues to do to connect our students, because our students become the citizens of California, or our citizens, but they become the employed citizens of California eventually. So thank you. If there's any questions, happy to fill in.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for the tremendous work you guys are doing, really leading the charge. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, I know I just got prompted that we are nearing the end, so let's try to get to our last speaker so we can have some time for public comment. And that is Department of Aging for ordering paragraph 15.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here with you and present again. I think my update will be relatively brief. My name is Mark Beckley. I'm the Chief Deputy Director for the California Department of Aging. I'll be reporting out on Executive Order 15. Let's see. Okay, great. So one key charge that we had under the executive order is to really ascertain the needs of older adults for connectivity. So one of our research analysts actually put together this great dashboard which overlays the cpuc access data statewide with the data of older adults and where they reside. So on this dashboard, what you're able to see is the number of older adult households that are either or underconnected across the state. You can do a drill down by county, and you can also see the county percentage ranking. So which ones have the highest percentage of older adults who are connected or highly connected, and the percentage of older adults who are or underconnected. And this data can be found on our website. It's Let's Get Healthy. And it actually includes a lot of other dashboards that are related to our master plan for aging. And what this data has showed us is that in terms of low connectivity, there's about 838,489 older adult households that have low connectivity. There are about 3,600 that have no connectivity. And our overall estimate, we use the UC Berkeley IGS data, the data that they provide for CETF, to create this estimate that there are approximately 1.9 million older adults, 65 and older, that are or underconnected. So that's really our target population in terms of really trying to reach out to these individuals and get them connected to broadband and the internet, and hopefully, increase the speed of their internet as well. And in terms of reach, our target population in the immediate term is 52,000 older adults that are within the reach of our area agencies on aging. The way that we drive that number is we did a survey of our senior centers throughout the state, and they polled their members in terms of who lacked a digital device, who couldn't afford a device, and who would really like one. As I reported out in the last time I attended this meeting, we did a deployment recently of 4,000 iPads to older adults who currently lack connectivity or lack a device. So we're able to provide them with devices. We also deployed 8,500 Google Home smart speakers to individuals who also needed a digital device. Okay, and there is really good news for us in the May revision. So the May revision proposes $17 million in new funding for CDA to purchase additional devices. Of that amount, $10 million will be provided for new devices, including service plans. So under our current 4,000 iPad deployment, that also includes 24 months of connectivity. So we will be doing the same with these additional purchases. And we plan to purchase approximately 10,000 devices and service plans. So get 10,000 additional older adults connected to broadband. The remaining $7 million is going to be dedicated to digital literacy and education initiatives. So right now we're talking to a variety of different organizations, such as the SF Tech Council, OASIS, Cyber Seniors, to really talk about what they have to offer in terms of digital literacy and education. We're looking at a few different strategies. One is to provide education and literacy virtually, and also and by phone, and also looking to see if we can also expand in-person efforts as we come out of COVID for hands-on training for older adults with the use of devices. I also want to highlight that we also have a proposal to add 2 new staff to CDA that will be dedicated solely to digital divide initiatives. So we're really excited about that. So we'll finally have dedicated staffing. Right now, we've been doing a lot of redirections to really cover this effort. Now we'll actually have some staff invested in continuing our initiatives. So in a nutshell, those are the updates from CDA. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Wow, that's really exciting, Mark. I hadn't noted that in the budget, so thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And that's excellent to get both human resources and some additional funding.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Okay, I am seeing some questions in the chat, so maybe we can start with those and then shift over to the public comment. And Mark, if I can ask you to stop sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of
And
course.
we'll go backwards and we'll start with you, Mark. There's a question for you here from Larry Ortega. When you speak of devices, do you mean that to say wireless devices only? And when you speak of devices, same question. Okay.
Yeah, so when we speak of devices, we are looking at predominantly tablets. What we really want to provide connectivity to are social engagement, telehealth type services, and then just access to general information. So right now we are targeting digital devices such as tablet devices.
Okay, thank you. And looks like, Jeff, you might have answered the question around from David. Okay. And Laura, it looks like you have a question as well for CDA.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, as you're budgeting and looking at providing devices and access, how long time frame wise you anticipate that lasting, as we're talking about, access and plans and stuff like that.
Yeah, so with the 10,000 devices that I mentioned, so the service plans, we had negotiated a prior agreement with AT&T. We'll go back out to other service providers as well and see what their offerings are. But under our current AT&T plan, that provides for 24 months of access to the internet. And like I say, if we can find better deals, we'll make those dollars stretch as far as we can.
That's really awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
That is excellent. Okay, if there's no more questions from the council, I think we'll move to public comment. Okay, so first up, I see that Larry Ortega has raised a hand.
Can I go?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Guzman. My name is Larry Ortega, and I represent Community Union, a nonprofit that has been established since 1993. We have trained over 30,000 people throughout the state of California in adopting technology in different areas in Central California, as well as mostly in Southern California. And we've done it in language in Spanish, Chinese, Korean, as well as English. Our collaborative partners have been in schools and libraries throughout the state. One of the things that my main comment today is relative to the focus on wireless technology. And I applaud you, Commissioner Guzman, in pointing out that, the real core issue, if our infrastructure in California is to be competitive as we need it to be, it needs to be hardwired, it needs to be fiber optics. And the history to part of this, and I'll be very brief on this, is that the incumbent providers were paid to wire everybody with fiber optics, and then took a turn when they saw that nobody was watching the store and used those monies to actually do their wireless business. It's a topic for a different time, a different discussion. But I think we need to be centered on that fiber optics connectivity throughout all the houses and in these affordable housing projects, into schools and libraries, et cetera. That has to be the priority. Wireless technology is inferior to fiber optic. And right now, the legislature, and this is where this council can step in and help direct this, the legislature is proposing a lot of bills and a lot of money to provide wireless technologies. In fact, SB 556 is actually striving to take away powers from the municipalities in terms of placement and costs, in terms of what they're going to choose as far as fees are concerned. And these are bills that are designed to make us inferior. Right now, if wireless technology was to solve the digital divide, there would be no digital divide, because there isn't a kid that I know that doesn't own a cell phone right now. And kids cannot do their homework on cell phones. So wireless technology is an inferior technology. And this council needs to take leadership in that area and demand that the legislators start looking at broadband technology as it's meant to be, fiber optics. And I think that the terminology has been clouded And I've heard it referenced several times today that people have spoken about the broadband as being available through wireless, and that's not true. And we need to get that straight. And so the comment that I want to leave you all with, and the task that I want this council to take, is that we must insist on fiber optic connectivity as was promised 25 years ago, and it's yet to be delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ortega. Okay, we have two other comments, and if Jules, if you see those names, if you can call them out, I'm trying to look through here myself.
I will scan at the same time.
Okay, maybe I was not correct there. We'll give it.
I think there've been some requests for some links, and what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get those links from the presenters as well as the PowerPoint slide decks, and we will post them, and we'll also send them out when everything's posted with the video of the meeting. We will also send out an email to those who are on our stakeholders list.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, I don't see any further public comment. I think Scott or Jules, if you guys have any updates for the council in terms of next steps, I'll let you share that with us.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of next step, we will be working to identify the next date of the next Broadband Council meeting. And based on the conversations we've had and the conversations, identifying the action plan items and whether they're long-term or short-term, we may have the next meeting focus on the action plan items that have been identified as short-term, and then focus the final meeting of the year on those that have been identified as long-term. But that's to be determined still. We'll keep all of the council members and designees posted on that and solicit your feedback. But that is the next steps as far as the council itself, and then just the ongoing collaboration on our individual and collective efforts.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Well, thank you everybody for all the amazing updates. It's quite an exciting year. I know we will all be talking as these days move along here, particularly over the next few weeks as the legislature closes out the budget. And I look forward and wish you all the best in everyone's efforts to try to get at this access and affordability. And I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.